And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K back with you for episode 60. And the 60th episode has been memorable. Also memorable today here in New York. We've got the Devils at 1 o'clock, the Mets at 4 o'clock, the Yankees at 7:30, the Jets at 8, the Islanders at 9, Rangers at 7. Everybody's on today. Well, most everybody. We'll get you set for Game 2 of Mets-Dodgers in the NLCS. Rough one for the Mets last night. A controversial decision by Carlos Mendoza on who to start. We'll dive into that. We'll look ahead to Game 1. Yankees-Guardians in the ALCS in the Bronx tonight. And why these games in the ALCS could come down the first 4 innings. Memorable, right? It's the first day of the Jeff Ulbrich era tonight. Jets and Bills Monday Night Football. Will we see some more difference in the Jets offense? Or is it all the same without Robert Saleh? The Giants offense, well, they fell flat against the Bengals. And Brian Dable pins the blame on him. Is that true? Or is he covering something up? We'll dive into that. We'll go to the hockey locals first couple of games, some bright spots and not so bright spots. Liberty have tied up the WNBA Finals. We'll look ahead to Game 3 on Wednesday as the series shifts to Minnesota. And I was at the Rutgers game the other day. Not great, but on the college football note, Army's ranked. Talk about the Black Knights rise up the college football polls nationally. And much more. Coming up next here in New York State Sports. We'll see you in just a minute. And of course, welcome back here to New York State of Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K with you. Happy Mondays, all of you out there. And of course, we're going to have so much to dive into over the next hour. This has been a great weekend to be in the New York, New Jersey area. All the sports that are happening, all the big events that are happening nationally, so many New York teams in the national spotlight. I mean, this is what New York fans have wanted for a long time outside of a championship. And they've got a couple of cracks at it, which I think is going to be pretty good. Want to remind you, of course, you can follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok at IE Sports Radio. If you miss any part of the show, you want to go back and just listen to me again, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, all that fun stuff. We have show pages for all of our shows, iesportsradio.com/New York State of Sports. Remember to subscribe here on the YouTube channel. All of our shows are live on YouTube. So you can get to see all of our awesome faces. Be sure to check that out. You can follow me on X at Rickinator555. You can follow the show on X at NY State Sports IE. So we're going to take a quick break. Hear from the folks at Planet Jerky. Hear from the folks at Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Hear from the main man himself, Larry B., talking about this awesome network and some of the cool stuff you can check out here on IE Sports Radio. And then we will dive into the baseball and the LCSs. You're listening to New York State of Sports on IE Sports Radio. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And of course, thanks to our sponsors at Plant Jerky, Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Plant Jerky is a great snack for postseason baseball, Monday Night Football, which you got tonight, hockey, basketball, enjoy all that fun stuff. Seal the Deal Wax Seals for your fall events and weddings and all those fun things. And of course, check out the shop, get some cool merch. Represent IE Sports Radio, this fine network that we have over here, run by the great Larry B. Taryn Rodriguez this year. Thank you, Taryn. And we're going to talk, of course, from SoCal coming up with the Mets. And we talked about, of course, an eventful Monday. Again, we'll recap it. Devils at 1 o'clock. Mets at 4, game 2. Rangers at 7 tonight against the Red Wings. Yankees at 7:30 against the Guardians. Game 1 of the ALCS. Jets Monday Night Football against the Bills. And then at 9 o'clock, Patrick Waugh's return to Colorado as the Islanders take on the Avalanche. So a great eventful Monday here in the New York area. But before we look to the NLCS, let's take a quick look back because we haven't been here in a little bit since the Mets clinched that bid in the NLCS. And look, that was a fun couple of games at Citi Field against the Phillies. And it'll be a great team when the Mets-Dodgers ships to Citi Field on Wednesday for game 3. Francisco Lindor hits the grand slam that Lindor's had so many defining moments this year that's going to make him etched in Met lore forever. And that was one of them. And we told you on the broadcast last week that if Ranger Suarez is only going to go 5 innings, you couldn't expect the Phillies bullpen to get 10-plus outs the way the Mets have been hitting relievers left and right in these playoffs. David Peterson has been really good for this team. And they just find ways to win outside of last night. But still, for the Mets to get back to the LCS with this group for the first time in 9 years is a hell of an accomplishment. I mean, you've seen more Met shirts and more Met hats in this area than you've seen in a long time. And that speaks to the job Carlos Mendoza has done, speaks to the job David Stearns has done, and it speaks to what the players have been able to accomplish. So a heck of a run. And now they take on a juggernaut in the Dodgers, who had to go through their own adversity. They gave up 6 runs in the second inning in game 3 against the Padres. And it looked like their run was going to come to an end, and it was going to be a question of what Dave Roberts' future was going to be like. Since then, the Dodgers bullpen, with their pitchers, have thrown 33 straight scoreless innings. That ties a baseball record. The 1966 Orioles, who, keep in mind, only used like 3 pitchers, and the Dodgers have used 12, which is pretty remarkable. Everybody's been clicking on the right note. So the Mets lose last night, 9-0 in Game 1, which was, I think, was pretty interesting. The Mets on an 8 and the Giants on an 8 last night, which I think if you're a New Yorker, you tend to go to the playoff game more so than the regular season game. But I'm interested to see, if comment on YouTube, which one you tuned into more. The Mets made the decision with everybody fully rested. They hadn't played since Wednesday. They go to Kodai Senga, who went 3 innings in Game 1 against the Phillies, had over a week off, and he couldn't find the plate. He walks 3 guys in the first inning. Max Muncy makes them pay with a 2-run single. Dodgers then get another run in the second. Shohei Ohtani, who seems to only hit when people are on base. I mean, that's the amazing part. He gets a base hit. It's 3-0, and Senga's out of the game. And it begs the question, when you know the Dodgers pitching is in flux, why are you not starting Sean Manaea in Game 1? Why are you not starting to set the tempo with one of your better pitchers? And knowing that the goal has to be to get one in Los Angeles, Senga, give him credit for fighting his way back, but the Mets have better options. This isn't like they have to start Kodai Senga. And right now, if this series does go to Game 5, which I think it will, I don't want him anywhere near Game 5. Because in a sense, by starting Senga, they messed with the entire bullpen. They had to get 7+ innings out of their relievers last night, to the point where you don't think David Peterson's going to be available today. And they've been their 3rd reliable reliever behind Phil Maton and Edwin Diaz. You don't have Jose Butto today, probably. And it just sets you back for the course of the series. So whether it's mechanical with Senga, which it sounds like it was, luckily he's not further injured, but is this exactly the time to get Senga in the right frame of mind? I don't think so. I mean, this is the playoffs. You have to make rash decisions. And for a front office that has made great moves throughout the playoffs, I really questioned last night why they were so quick to give Senga the ball, knowing he could only get you 9 outs. Max. To me, I'm getting Senga simulated games. I'm doing everything I can to move his pitch count up. So if I do start him, I can get at least 5 out of him. Because that's really what it needs to be. But look, regardless of his pitching last night, Jack Flaherty owned the Mets yesterday. Dodgers allowed only 3 hits. Flaherty went 7 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Mets had a couple of chances. They didn't get a single extra base hit. Starling Marte had a chance in the 4th to tie the game. The ball died at the track. But that was about it. There was nothing the Mets could do against Flaherty last night, and I don't think it mattered who was pitching. So it leads to Game 2 this afternoon, 4 o'clock, and as they put here, it's Sean Manaea against the Dodgers bullpen. And when you look at Sean Manaea, who pitched really well in Game 3, Mendoza pushed him into the 7th, pushed him into the 8th inning. So this is a guy that I think the Mets need at least 6 from today. And I was watching the SNY post game last night. Gary Cohen brought up a great point that you're going to see a lot of fastballs today. Dodgers love hitting the off-speed stuff. You'll see fastballs from Manaea, and we're interested to see what happens against this lineup that is starting to find it. Mookie Betts has 3 homers lifetime against Manaea. Will Smith, the catcher, is like 9 for 18. We've seen Ohtani hit with men on base. Now, I look at this Dodger team coming into the series, and I see a team that is beatable, although they might be playing their best baseball at the right time. Freddie Freeman's banged up. It's a team that really only has a handful of starters. Walker Buehler keeps getting pushed back after his implosion in Game 3 against the Padres. Yamamoto was good in Game 5 for LA, but only went 5 innings. They pushed him to Game 4, which means he only gets 1 start in this series if it goes 7. And that's arguably their best pitcher. I mean, Flaherty aside. But this is a Dodger team and Dave Roberts that loves to use the bullpen, that loves to get the most out of it. And you've seen guys like Blake Treinen and Evan Phillips. Like, they've got different types of guys. Now, what helps the Mets is they only have one lefty in that pen, and that's former Met Anthony Banda. So they can throw a bunch of righties out there and see what works. And the key for Sean Manaea today is going to be to keep the ball on the ground. Over his last 5 starts, he's had 7 ground ball outs or more. He's had stretches where he's gotten 10 in a start. And if he can keep the ball in the ballpark in a hot day at Dodger Stadium, remember it's 1 o'clock first pitch out there, he's got to be able to set the tempo. And that's up to the Mets. Got to get an early lead in this game. And it's going to be tough. How do you prepare for a bullpen game when you're going to see 6, 7, 8 guys? I mean, that's what I was always curious about is how you necessarily prepare for that kind of role will be really interesting. I still like the Mets in this series. I'm not as confident in it after game 1, but this team responds to adversity. Now, the big question is going to be the health of Brandon Nimmo, which was reported yesterday that he is still dealing with some plantar fasciitis. He is good to go today, but Nimmo's been battling some injuries for the bulk of this year. Nimmo's fasciitis, according to Britton, got fairly worse during the Phillies series. Obviously, he's trying to give it a go, but that affects this lineup because Nimmo was starting to hit. Alonso is starting to hit. Vientos is hitting. Like Mark Vientos has had a breakout postseason to where he's going to be a star going forward, I think, for this group. But here's a stat that I think helps the Mets. And I was looking at this yesterday. Sarah Langs from MLB and ESPN just had this stat. Last night was the 6th different time that a team has won 9-0 or more in a game 1. The other 5 teams lost the series, which is an amazing stat. To win a game 9-0 in a game 1 or better. The most recent one was in 2011. The Rays won 9-0 in an ALDS and lost the series. You would think momentum would carry over from that. It obviously does not. So the Mets have that historic stat in their back pocket going into a game. And look, the goal for a road team is get a split. Get a split and go back to Citi Field where, of course, remember the last time the Mets played the Dodgers at Citi Field, Jorge Lopez threw a glove into the stands. I mean, think about how far we've come if you told a Met fan back then that the Mets and Dodgers would play again in the LCS, they would have thought you were crazy. But that's what this season has been. Mr. Ralph is here, the injury report. The Mets look the team who played in April, real Joel, hoping for a big bounce back. I think they'll bounce back and give a much better effort today. And it is a great night in New York sports. Been a great couple of days. I think that's what makes it fun that we can talk about all these awesome sports. So we don't have a lineup yet. If we get a lineup over the course of the next hour, I will give it to you here for game 2 because it's only 4 hours away, which will be a lot of fun. But again, I think the Mets will hang around. I think they'll make it competitive. And the key is going to be you're going to see Edwin Diaz think for multiple innings today if the Mets get a lead because they really had to burn a lot of the pen yesterday. Speaking of the bullpen, let's talk about the Yankees, who beat the Royals in 4 games, advancing to the ALCS tonight. And really, they got to the ALCS because of a couple of things. One, Giancarlo Stanton. I ripped him before game 3 because he couldn't run, and Stanton had an RBI double off Seth Lugo in game 3 and then hit a home run to break a tie in the 8th inning. You had him come through in game 4 with a big hit. Yankees didn't get a lot of runs on the board, but they found a way to get ahead early and at least rely on the strength of this team, which Garrett Cole had a vintage ace-like start, 7 innings in game 4. Looked much better than game 1 since he was on normal rest. You had the combination, to me, the bullpen was the biggest key. They didn't allow an earned run in the whole series. And it boils down to 2 guys. Clay Holmes, who should have been demoted out of the closer's role, was in a sense, but he's still getting high leverage outs in the middle of games, and he has found his sinker. He has found the stuff that's made him dominant over the course of the last couple of years. Found the stuff that made him an all-star in the first 2 months of the year. And that's a weapon because now you have Holmes, you have Canely, and Luke Weaver's been excellent. The Dream Weaver as the closer, he has been fantastic. He has a moxie and an attitude that you just don't see from guys, and he was virtually unhittable in this World Series. Casey didn't have the firepower, I think, to keep up, and I think that would help the Yankees. But think about it, in a 4-game series, they only used Dean Hamilton once. They only used Jake Cousins once. So this bullpen is fully rested. This bullpen, I think, is starting to find it. And that was the question with this team is, can a bullpen that doesn't have as much swings and misses get through this postseason? Through one round, it has. And if you told the Yankee fans you're going to win this series and Aaron Judge was going to have a double and that's it, Juan Soto didn't hit a home run. They really didn't find the long ball that much. And to get out of there with a 4-game series win, you would have signed up for in a heartbeat, and Bobby Witt was held in check. The sum of the parts for the Yankees won them this series, and now it's time to see if the Stars deliver, which starts tonight. Game 1 in the Bronx, 7:30 Eastern on TBS. Alex Cobb gets to start for Cleveland against Carlos Rodon, and this was a questionable move by Aaron Boone and Matt Blake and that coaching staff. There was a lot of talk over the last 48 hours of would they go Carlos Rodon or Clark Schmidt. And we're both on normal rest. The Yankees haven't played since Thursday, so they could make this call. And I think they made the right move. And I'm looking at home road splits as the reason why. I know Cleveland hits lefties very well, and this is a really different Cleveland team. Like Jen B can tell you about it, where the Guardians, this is a good team. They hit lefties. They've got Stephen Kwan, who's annoying. He gets hits all the time. Jose Ramirez, of course, is one of the better superstars in the game. Josh Naylor can hit the long ball. We've seen David Fry step up, such as the big home run in Game 4 against Detroit. You've seen Lane Thomas emerge. He had the grand slam off Skubal in Game 5, which was amazing. Skubal looked unhittable, and then Cleveland finally got to him. But you look at home road splits. Rodon has 9 wins at home this year. Clark Schmidt had a near under 2 on the road going into the postseason. And if it boils down to, I'd rather Rodon in 1 and 5 than in 3 and 7. As we saw last night, Game 1 in a best of 7 isn't necessarily a must-win game because you have more games to get into a series. So if I'm starting with Rodon, with a well-rested bullpen, with Garrett Cole in Game 2, I can now have a quicker hook with Rodon than I normally would. And I think the one thing Rodon has learned from his start in Game 2 against the Royals, when he looked unhittable the first 2 innings and used all that adrenaline up and then fell into a landslide in the 4th, he's got to control that energy. He can't have a 3-up, 3-out inning and then start roaring and start going crazy. He's got to be able to channel the emotion, get through it, and at least get this team through 5. And I think he can do that. He's making a ton of money that he should do that. And what helps them, the Guardians don't have a lot of familiarity with him. They're good against lefties, but remember, Rodon has not faced Cleveland this season. Yankees were really good against Cleveland this year. They were 4-2 in 6 games. And the one interesting stat I saw involving the Guardians, the Yankees have hit 11 home runs in 6 games against Cleveland. 8 of them are from Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. So you're talking about a Guardians team that has a scary bullpen. Like the goal for the Yankees in this series, they've got to get the lead early. Because you look at a Cleveland team that can match up with Cade Smith, who's been one of the better relievers, if not the best reliever in the postseason so far. They'll use him in any leverage situation. Hunter Gaddis, nasty changeup. Of course, they have Clase, who can close games. But Cleveland's rotation isn't anything to write home about. Between Cobb tonight, Tanner Bibby, they can throw a couple other guys out there. Matt Boyd, you'll see in this series. You saw him throw twice against Detroit, but that's not what Cleveland's about. Remember, Cleveland had a lot of injuries to that rotation. If you remember 2 years ago when these two teams played and the Yankees 1 and 5, it was Shane Bieber. It was Tristan McKenzie. It was Aaron Savali. They had different guys that you could throw out there. Logan Allen would be another guy. Like we've seen a guy I would love to see is Gavin Williams. The Guardians have had to use a lot of their bullpen. Stephen Vogt in his first year has done a really good job to get Cleveland to this point. And their offense is much better than it was 2 years ago. They at least have some pop now in this lineup. It's not drastically different, but it's taken steps in the right direction. Now, what helps the Yankees tonight is they have a lot of familiarity with Cobb. Cobb is 37 years old. He's been around before, been in the AL East with the Orioles. I'll give you a couple of guys that are going to love seeing Cobb tonight. Juan Soto, 7 for 11, a double, 2 home runs, 4 RBI. Gleyber Torres, 3 for 9 with 2 solo home runs. This is from the top of the lineup. And Aaron Judge, 3 for 12, but one of those 3 hits is a home run. The Yankees as a team hitting .286 against Cobb in his career with a .939 OPS. So this is a matchup they love. You're not going to see Cobb that long. Maybe one time through the order. I doubt he gets through 2 times through the order. And I think this Vogt wants this to be a bullpen game. He wants the chess match. The Yankees have to make it where they get ahead early and they're dictating the pace and they're dictating what's going on. But the X factors for me, on the Yankees side, I'm interested to see what they do at first base. Anthony Rizzo is on the roster, which is great news. He's going to be a big help for this team, both in the dugout and with the at-bats that he's able to draw against this Cleveland pitching staff. I think Anthony Volpe is another factor. He had much better at-bats in the ALDS. They need him to get going. And on the pitching side, I'm going to go with Ian Hamilton. I think this is a guy the Yankees could throw in there in the 4th, 5th inning, get a couple big outs, kind of bridge the tide in the game. You do see Marcus Stroman on this roster, but I think Stroman's on in case the game gets out of hand and he can get some long relief with. But I can't see how the Yankees lose this series. I'll pick them in 6. I just think they're the better team, and I think eventually their stars are going to find it. And as long as Soto and Judge are there, I think this is a perfect matchup for them. I mean, this is a team that they feast on this year. Now, they haven't played since I believe the last time was around August. In the Bronx, the Yankees took 2 out of 3 in August, but they played April and August essentially. And the question is, a Subway Series is possible. Now, as a New York fan, I would love to see it. I have family that are Met fans that where one team is happy that there isn't. But to have a chance for it to happen, something that hasn't been done in 24 years, is pretty remarkable. And the buzz for baseball here in New York, normally we'd be leading with football, and we're leading with 2 teams in the Final Four in the League Championship Series. So Nets Game 2 later today, Yankees Game 1 coming up tonight. We'll take our first break. We'll come back and do some football. We'll first talk about the team that played yesterday, the Giants. Absolutely awful on offense. And then we'll preview later tonight the Jets and the Bills in the first game of the Jeff Ulbrich era. You're listening to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back in just a minute.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky K here with you. And of course, Washington, Jaden Daniels, very good yesterday against the Ravens. Washington has been the team in the NFC East. Of course, Eagles are still a little bit confused. Dallas has been, that game was god-awful yesterday against the Lions. But the Giants were not much better. And they missed a golden opportunity. Chance to get to 3-3, chance to be with only a game back in the division. And their offense just wasn't good. They lose 17-7 to the Bengals, the game that a lot of people didn't want on national TV. And I think NBC was hoping they would get Commanders Ravens. They did not. And really, I think it comes down to just the Giants could not make the right plays at the right time. And you look at this game, the Giants controlled the ball for over 34 minutes. They had a good control of the game, but they were 5 for 15 on third down. They made it 3 out of 5 fourth downs, which we'll dive into in a minute. But this is a Giant team that otherwise, besides the offense, I thought played a pretty good game. They only committed 2 penalties. Their defense was really good in this game. They sacked Joe Burrow 4 times. Constantly got pressure. This is a Giant defense that didn't have Kayvon Thibodeau, who's now on IR with a wrist injury. But you saw Ojulari do a good job. Dexter Lawrence is wreaking havoc. Micah McFadden got a big fumble recovery in the second half. And Giants didn't get a couple bounces their way. Chase Brown had a fumble that ran out of bounds with 2 minutes ago. If the Giants get that back, maybe they drive down the field. But they got burned yesterday by offense and special teams. Daniel Jones, 22 of 41, 205 yards. He does throw an interception in the first half. Did run the ball for 56 yards and 11 carries. So you're clearly seeing the running game is back with him, which is only a good sign. And again, no Malik Neighbors, no Devin Singletary. I thought Tyrone Tracy did a good job, 50 yards on the ground, but he did have a touchdown. 6 catches for 57 yards, tied for the best receiver on the team with Darius Slayton, who had another 6 catches. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5 catches, 50 yards. You're seeing Theo Johnson more involved in the passing game. He had 3 catches. But the Giants just couldn't make the key plays in big spots, and they don't stretch the field. And I think that's where they missed Malik Neighbors. In a game against a Bengals secondary where they should have been able to stretch the field. The Bengals defense, at least in the back of the secondary, is not very good. You've seen teams attack them this year. Cam Taylor-Britt, Mike Hinton, and those guys. Teams have been able to exploit that. The Bengals haven't been losing games because they can't score. It's because they can't stop anybody. And the fact the Giants could not take advantage of that matchup, that's a cause for concern. Another cause for concern is Andrew Thomas is getting an MRI today, and that's one of their better offensive tackles. So they can't afford to lose him for any period of time. So we'll see what happens with that. And all post-game last night, Brian Daboll was saying that this loss is on him. Now, you could argue as a coach, you would never really call out your players, especially in this day and age in sports. You don't see that. So I understand it. But you look at Brian Daboll and all those fourth down decisions. He goes for it on 4th and 2 in the third quarter from his own 38-yard line. Now, the Giants didn't have a punt. They had a different punter. Matt Hack was the punter as Jamie Gilliam was inactive for this game. But Hack's been punting around the league before. It's not like that you couldn't punt the ball, and your defense was doing a hell of a job as is. But as Chris Collinsworth said last night, I think he was trying to get a spark out of his offense. And the one thing when you have a head coach that's calling plays is he has to focus on the defense while at the same time trying to spark the offense. And that's where I think Daboll made the decision himself. He wants to call plays. He wants to be the guy. So when the offense is struggling, it's going to end up being on him at the end of the day. And you can talk about the quarterback all you want. We've done that a bunch of times. And before yesterday, I thought Jones, for the most part, through the first few games, okay. But that's a game where a Daniel Jones naysayer could be like, well, you win that game with a better quarterback. And you probably do. I would think last night if the Giants had better quarterback play, they win that game. They did everything else decent enough. I mean, the only difference is Greg Joseph missed 2 40-plus yard field goals. What I don't understand is why the Giants didn't try to get closer. They did have no timeouts, but with 50 seconds left and it's already a 40-plus yarder, maybe you should try to get one more first down before you kick the field goal and do the onside kick, because you'd still had about 30-plus seconds. You'd still have a decent amount of time. So I don't get the rush to have Greg Joseph try a field goal he just missed. So that was a little bit questionable, but Giants are 2-4, and their next game is going to be Saquon's return to MetLife. Eagles at 3-2. They beat Cleveland yesterday, but it wasn't pretty. Nick Sirianni's busy yelling at fans. Eagles right now are favored by 3.5. Giants, again, can keep it close. I mean, they kept it close with Dallas. They beat Seattle, which that was a decent win, even though the Seahawks have been terrible lately. But does Neighbors get back? And what's also interesting is when Singletary gets back, how much do they split the carries between Singletary and Tracy? Because now you've got a decent 1-2 punch in the backfield, especially since Tracy can line up out wide and catch the ball. He can run routes like a receiver. I mean, that gives him an extra dynamic to this offense. But it's clear this team misses Malik Neighbors in the biggest way because he's a downfield threat. So hopefully the concussion heals up. Sounded like he was making strides this week, even though he was at a Travis Scott concert last week while he was in protocol, not against the rules, but you can argue, you can see why fans are like, what are you doing? But it is what it is. Jets begin the Jeff Ulbrich era tonight. Is Jets-Bills, Monday Night Football. Huge game. Winner has the lead in the AFC East. The Jets win. They basically have the tiebreaker right now. So for all the downside with Robert Saleh being fired, the Jets are still in a decent position. And you can talk about all these different factors. And to me, I'm looking at the Jet defense against Josh Allen. Josh Allen was great in the first 3 games, but in the last 2 against the Ravens and Texans, he's been terrible. And when you look at Josh Allen this year, he hasn't thrown an interception. Huge, but you look at his numbers against the Jets last season. He played them on November 19th, and that was he went 20 of 32, 275, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And then in the opener, 29 of 41, 236, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. So at the same time, Josh Allen can be hit or miss, both home and away. And that to me is going to be interesting to see which Josh Allen shows up. If it's going to be the guy that's going to get the ball downfield, then the Jets might be in trouble. But remember, James Cook is banged up. Khalil Shakir is banged up. Those guys are probably going to play, but the Bills are less than 100%. I think they're going to try to see if we get Dalton Kincaid involved in this game. Jet defense to me isn't an issue. I mean, remember, the defense got put in some tough spots in London last week. I think they're going to be fine from a defensive standpoint. It's the offense going to be interesting. And the question is going to be, do we see more balance from Todd Downing? Todd Downing was the passing game coordinator. Now, essentially, is calling the plays. Nate Hackett gets a demotion, which any other guy gets fired. Let's just call it what it is. Nate Hackett is here because Aaron Rodgers is here. Period. I mean, that's the influence Aaron Rodgers has on the Jet organization. But Todd Downing comes from being an offensive coordinator in Tennessee. And, of course, what did Tennessee have? A balanced running attack with Derrick Henry. Breece Hall and Braylon Allen aren't Derrick Henry, but what the Jets need to do is they have to get back to basics. They have to get back to balancing the offense with a running attack and not let a 40-year-old and Aaron Rodgers throw a ball 40-plus times. They don't have an offensive line to do that. Morgan Moses is getting healthier, which I think is a big boost to the line, but there has to be give and take. It has to be a balance. Garrett Wilson had 20-plus targets last week, so they've got to find some common denominators. To me, I think the X factor is the running game for the Jets. if they can do just enough to keep Josh Allen on the sideline, I think the New York has to win the time possession. And it's clear this team wants to play for Ulbrich. There is a fire that he brings. There is a reason why the Jets want to give him a shot to coach. He coached the Senior Bowl, kind of an audition for him. He gets a chance to show that maybe he's good enough for the job. I like the Jets tonight just because out of desperation. I think they know they need this game. They head to Pittsburgh and take on Ralph Steelers this Sunday night. And if they lose this game short week, you're staring potentially 2-5 in the face for a team that had Super Bowl aspirations. That would be an absolute disaster. And you're playing the Bills at the right time. Buffalo isn't looking great. They got demolished against the Ravens. They came back into Texas only for Sean McDermott to have a rough time with time management. So is McDermott that much better of a coach than on the other side? I'm not so sure. But I don't take the Jets there. I think they find a way to get it done. I think it's close, but people could say, well, yeah, the Jets beat the Bills last year. They beat with Zach Wilson, a quarterback. So you throw on Rodgers in there, you have a shot, but he's got to take care of the ball. I think he will after the 3 interceptions last week. So we'll take one more break. We'll come back. We'll do a little New York grab bag for the last part of the show. We'll talk Liberty. We'll talk hockey. We'll talk college football. And we'll look ahead to the final week also of the MLS season on Saturdays. Both the Red Bulls and NYCFC prepare for their respective playoff matchups. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all those sports. We'll take one more time out and be back in just a minute.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen D, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
The roar of the crowd, the drama and pageantry, the adrenaline rush and decadence of the world of professional wrestling. Join yours truly, the SoCal Saint, for the best pro wrestling podcast going today, the IE Wrestling Show, exclusively on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Join us every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, every Wednesday, the IE Wrestling Show. It's just too woo!
Welcome back to New York State Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky K here with you to talk about, of course, our third segment is usually our local roundup grab bag segment because there's so many other local sports. We try to devote all of it into one shot. So we'll start with the Liberty, who are in the WNBA Finals. They split the first 2 games of the Minnesota Lynx, and they missed a golden opportunity to go up 2-0. They were dominant in game 1, had a 15-point lead with 5 minutes to go, and just let everything slip away between Sandy Brundell not challenging in overtime when they would have got the ball in extra possession, between Sabrina Ionescu fouling Courtney Williams under 10 seconds in regulation to give the Lynx a 4-point play, to Brianna Stewart missing a free throw with 0.8 seconds left that would have gave the Liberty a 1-point lead, to a Stewart missed layup in overtime that would have tied the game. That's the kind of loss that can usually stick with a team, especially a team that has championship aspirations, a team that got to this point last year and missed opportunities in Game 4 against Vegas that would have sent it to a Game 5. And they almost had that happen yesterday. They had about an 8-point lead going into the fourth quarter. The Lynx cut the lead to 2, had the ball, but Liberty made plays to end the game on a 14-2 run, and it wasn't the normal cast of characters either. Sabrina Ionescu had 12 points in the first quarter. She had 3 the rest of the game, and she didn't really take a lot of shots. She had 9 shots. But she did a good job defensively. She got her teammates involved, and the big star from yesterday to me was Benijah Laney-Hamilton. This is a player that has dealt with injuries this year, hasn't been on the floor on a consistent basis, but she's known for this moment. She had 20 points, 8 of 14 shooting. She made 4 threes, including a clutch 3 in the corner late that gave Liberty a 2-possession lead. Jonquel Jones had 9 boards. Brianna Stewart broke a finals record with 7 steals to go at 21 points. She had back-to-back steals in the fourth quarter at a key moment in the game. They're at least able to hold Nafisa Collier to 16 points. Nobody on the Lynx had more than 16. They were 6 of 20 from 3, so they didn't shoot the ball well. So give the Liberty defense a lot of credit. I would like to see a little more from Leona Fibic. They need her sharpshooting, just 3 points. She only took 3 shots in the game. Maybe get Fibic involved more as this series shifts to Minnesota. Game 3 is Wednesday. Game 4 is Friday. If the Liberty can steal one of these 2 games, which I think they will, I think they're good enough to take one of these games, which would mean a decisive Game 5 would be Sunday night at the Barclays Center. And yesterday, the Barclays Center, I'll give them a lot of credit too. NFL Sunday, a baseball Sunday with the Mets at night. Liberty played in the afternoon yesterday, 3 o'clock Eastern on ABC. They got 18,000 people in that building yesterday. So props to you guys who go into the game. That was a really fun atmosphere. This is a team that people should get behind. I don't know if they'll do viewing parties for these next 2 games, but the Lynx are going to be a tough out. Cheryl Reeves is a really good coach. This Lynx team knows they can beat the Liberty. They've done it, and they know now that they can come back from any deficit. I mean, the Liberty gave the Lynx that hope because right now New York should be up 2-0 and needing 1 win for a championship. But they do things the hard way. They know it. Brianna Stewart knows it. I mean, she's been around. She knows how big the situation is. And Ionescu knows how big the situation is. I mean, this is a core that built itself for this reason. So we'll see if the Liberty can capture a title. They've got to get at least one of the next 2 on the road to at least get this to a Game 5 at home. And I think they will, knowing what's on the line. Let's do some hockey. Hockey season underway, and all 3 locals are in action. Rangers, of course, tonight are against the Red Wings at home. Rangers were dominant in that season opener against the Penguins. Sorry, Ralph. 6-0. That was a heck of a performance on the road. Tough environment. Lafreniere played great. Kreider played great. Shesterkin, I think, had a solid effort in net. Defense was on point. And it was the exact opposite Saturday. They took on the Utah Hockey Club home opener. And Utah's been really good. I mean, they've been scoring at will. They've won their first 3 games. But the Rangers did not do a good job defensively. Utah had 4 power plays. They got 1 goal in that situation. And a game that did go back and forth. And Panarin had a couple of goals in the first 18 minutes. It was 2-2. Utah made it 4-2. Keandre Miller made it 4-3. Dylan Guenther had 5 goals, by the way, in the first 3 games. He made it 5-3. Rangers rallied a tie before Clayton Keller won it a minute into overtime. But only 19 saves from Shesterkin. Peter Laviolette mentioned that they need to see much more improvement defensively. And it's tonight. They need to respond against Detroit. Detroit right now in the season, again, very brief into the season. They are 1-1 through the first 2 games. Patrick Kane, of course, comes back to the Garden. Tarasenko back to the Garden. Should be a fun matchup. Cam Talbot probably a net for Detroit. Shesterkin's going to be a net for the Rangers tonight, so we'll see what happens there. Devils are going to be playing Utah later today. In New Jersey, 3-1 on the season. They've got 6 points. We talked about their sweep in Prague last week against the Sabres. This week, the Devils played 2 matchups. They lost their home opener to the Maple Leafs 4-2. They got down with 3 early goals in the first period. But they went out to Washington and played a good game against the Capitals. Paul Cotter had 2 goals. They erased an early 1-0 deficit. Then it was 2-2 in the second for Tatar, and Cotter made it 4-2. Dawson Mercer tacked on an empty netter late when it was a 1-goal game. New Jersey had won 58% of the faceoffs, so a good game for the Devils on the road to bounce back, get themselves to 3-1, and they'll try to get their first home win today. They have a back-to-back. They take on Carolina tomorrow, Ottawa on Thursday, and then Washington on Saturday at home. Rangers, before we dive into the Islanders, have the Red Wings today and Thursday, so back-to-back games with the Red Wings. Maple Leafs on Saturday out in Canada, so only 3 games for the Rangers this week. Islanders still looking for that first win. They are 0-1-1 in their first 3. First 2, they lost to the Utah Hockey Club in their opener, 5-4 in overtime. Anthony Duclair had a power play goal early in the game. The Islanders did lead 4-3 with 2 minutes to go before Doan tied it, and then Genther won it in overtime. And you look at the numbers for this game for the Islanders, they had 6 power play chances, only 1 goal. They need to take advantage of those chances, only 2 takeaways. So not a good effort there. And then Saturday, look, they ran into a buzzsaw. Jake Oettinger, 34 saves out in Dallas as the Stars won 3-0, 2 goals from Tyler Seguin. And now the Islanders head to Colorado tonight. They're on the West Coast this week with Colorado tonight, and then they go for a little bit east, but they go to St. Louis on Thursday. And what was telling is I saw an interesting quote from Patrick Waugh, who returns to Colorado tonight, of course, former Avalanche goalie, former Avalanche coach. Ethan Sears, the New York Post, had this, and Patrick Waugh said, when he was looking back and wasn't sure that he was going to get another NHL job, he said, I think I didn't respect the position enough in the past. It took a lot of things for granted, and shame on me for being like this. So it is clear Waugh is embracing the opportunity. In his first full season, remember, he took over an interim basis last year. This is an Islander team that has talent. When you look at Barzal and Duclair on that top line, like they're able to get things done. And it's way too early in the season, but Islanders could use a win tonight. I mean, it'd be good to at least try to get one of these next 2 on the road before they head home Saturday to take on the Canadians, who have won 2 of their first 3 games. So we'll see what happens. But locals today in action again. Devils in 5 minutes will drop the puck against Utah. Rangers 7:00 at the Garden against the Red Wings, and Islanders at 9:00 tonight against the Avalanche. Moving on to college football, and a mixed bag for the locals this week. And we'll start with some of the positives, and we'll start with Syracuse, who was on the road against NC State. NC State did not have their usual starting quarterback in Grayson McCall, but it was still a really good road win for this group. They had a bye to really look forward to this matchup, and they ended up getting the win, 24-17, your final score. And Kyle McCord, another good game, 31-42, 346, 2 touchdowns, including the touchdown at Jackson Meeks in the fourth quarter. Syracuse had a 24-7 lead with 10:20 to go. NC State tried to rally, including a 75-yard touchdown from their quarterback, C.J. Bailey. LaQuint Allen almost had 90 rushing yards in the score, including a couple of catches. And I think when you look at Syracuse in this game, the difference, they were 8 for 15 on third down. And that kind of counteracts the 8 penalties. Plus, they held the ball for 36 minutes. And they didn't turn the football over. NC State lost 2 fumbles, 3 turnovers. So the Syracuse defense gets it done. They are 5-1. Now, they have the week off. They actually had a week off last. They had the UNLV game, then they played NC State. They actually have to bye this week, and then they get set for a big game next Thursday at number 20 Pitt. Pitt's undefeated. They beat Cal over the weekend in a close game. But Syracuse is going to face some upper competition coming up, and they're going to have to keep this effort forward. But to for Syracuse and Pitt next Thursday on ESPN. That's a huge game for both those teams. And again, an ACC that's wide open. I know Clemson's good. I know Miami's good. But we've seen SMU have some big wins. Louisville's a decent team. I mean, there are opportunities to get some wins. So, fun moment for me this weekend. I was at my first Division I football game. I actually went to the Rutgers game against Wisconsin. Spent some time with my brother for my birthday. It was a really good experience. I'd never been to a big-time college football game, and this is a huge opportunity for Rutgers to make a statement. Oh, and they made a statement just in the absolute wrong way possible. They took on Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got their backup quarterback, and it was over before the game started. Wisconsin dominated 42-7. Tyree Walker, their running back, at 198 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rutgers was just awful in the passing game, and Cadillac Mannix was 12 of 32 for 103 yards. It wasn't all him. Their receivers couldn't catch the ball. There was a drive where Rutgers had 3 straight drops. And another play call that Greg Schiano and the offensive coordinator had that was really confusing. They had a 4th down. They went for it in Wisconsin territory in a game that was, remember, 42-7 was the final. It was 14-0 at the half. So Rutgers was still in it despite how bad they were playing. And they go shotgun. When you have one of the best running backs in college football and Calvin Ungai, just line up and give him the ball, go into center. It doesn't make any sense. But Rutgers was 5 of 17 on 3rd down. They had 4 penalties. And every time Wisconsin let them back in the game, they couldn't take advantage of it. So it's two losses in a row for Rutgers. The Nebraska game, they were competitive. Their offense has been bad, just 14 points in the last 8 quarters. And they're going to have to bounce back. They have a good opportunity for it this week. They have their homecoming on Saturday afternoon against UCLA. UCLA with Deshaun Foster is 1-5. They are terrible. And so far this season, I was looking at it today, West Coast to East Coast, or at least teams that go to the other coast in the Big Ten, are 3-10. One of the exceptions being Penn State winning at USC, which was a really big comeback win for the Nittany Lions. But I mean, Rutgers can still have a good year. They only have one ranked opponent the rest of the year, and that's Illinois at home. They do have to go to USC a week from Friday, which is 11 o'clock tip, or 11 o'clock kickoff. But they need something out of this offense, and it can't just be the Calvin Ungai show. They're going to have to find some vertical attack. Team that doesn't have a lot of vertical attack, but still gets it done, is Army. Army is ranked, and yes, you read that right, folks. The Army Black Knights are 23rd in the AP college football poll. And that's a big accomplishment. When you look at, again, the college football playoff, you have to be the best ranked group of 5 to get in. Right now, Army's not. Boise State, with the Heisman frontrunner Ashton Jeanty, is in the top 15 in the country. But Army, they're not only winning games, they are dominating games. Like, they are not even in competitive games right now. Their closest margin of victory this year is 17 points. They took on UAB this week, and they scored in the first minute and a half of the game. They were up 34-3 at the half. I mean, Bryson Daly, 102 yards passing and a touchdown, but Army's rushing for 400 yards and 5 scores. Daly ran for 4 touchdowns on the ground. Defensively, they played a strong game with 3 sacks, and they're not only bowl eligible, but we've talked about it. They've got a real opportunity to get to that Notre Dame game at Yankee Stadium at the end of November undefeated. And not only is Army ranked, but Navy's ranked. So the 2 service academies in the top 25. I mean, that's a special year for college football. Army this week takes on East Carolina. That's a noon game on ESPN2. They are a 16-point favorite. Actually, they opened at 17. I think now it's at 16. 16-point favorite in that game. They get East Carolina this week, Air Force next week, which Air Force is 1-5, but it's still a battle of the service academies. That's back first week of November. They do have a tough one before the Notre Dame game against North Texas on the road. North Texas is 5-1. But Army's team, this is a special group. So Jeff Monken deserves a lot of credit. I think he should really get some National Coach of the Year honors as well if this season continues the way it's going. And we've talked about it the last couple of weeks for a potential back-to-back Army-Navy in December for both a conference title, maybe a group of 5 playoff spot. I mean, that would that would be really a cool thing for both those two schools in the country in general to kind of get that storyline. Very quickly, soccer final weekend of the regular season is this week's. New York City, NYCFC goes to Canada to take on Montreal. The Red Bulls are at home to take on Columbus. Going into the final week, NYCFC is 5th in the standings, so they do have a shot to get into the top 4 with a win and an Orlando loss. Red Bulls are 7th. They can jump as far as 5th. They cannot fall below 7th. So they're in that range of that 5 to 7 spot. And college basketball, we're only a couple weeks away from college basketball, so we're going to add that to the docket. Right before we got on the air, the college basketball AP Top 25 came out. And for the first time since 2020, 2021, Rutgers is ranked in the top 25. So congratulations to Steve Pikiel's group. Again, with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, there's a lot of potential with this group. They're picked in the middle of the pack in the Big Ten. But this is a good group. And shout out to St. John's. I mean, Rick Pitino's team is just outside the top 25. I think right now they're 27th. So they can get ranked pretty quick with a couple of wins to begin the year. So both Rutgers and St. John's, not just regionally relevant this year, but I think nationally relevant too. Rick Pitino's got a good group of transfers. Scott from North Texas is going to be a good – Aaron Scott's a good leader. Kadary Richmond getting you from Seton Hall is a big boost for this group. And they'll try to have a little bit more chemistry and have a better start to the year so you don't have to rely on that end of the push they had last year as they try to make the tournament in year 3 in the Rick Pitino era, which I know was kind of weird that fans saw him in a Kentucky Blazer at their Midnight Madness the other day. I wouldn't read too much into that. I mean, of course, Rick Pitino winning a title at Kentucky, so it makes a lot of sense why that would be the case. So, again, don't read too much into that press clippings. But we're going to add college basketball to the docket. And NBA, we're going to add to the docket pretty soon. Knicks begin next Tuesday against the Celtics. There was some interesting exchange between Dante DiVincenzo and Knicks assistant Rick Brunson last night. But if we get Knicks Timberwolves in the finals, sign me up for that. I mean, between the Randall angle, the DiVincenzo angle, the Karl-Anthony Towns angle, the Thibodeau angle, that would be incredible. Knicks will begin Tuesday against the Celtics. That game last night, real quick, the Knicks did win 115-110. Karl-Anthony Towns had 16 points and 16 rebounds. Jalen Brunson had 24 points. Cam Payne had 12 off the bench. McBride, 12 off the bench. Landry Shamet, 13 off the bench. I mean, those three are going to be big for this Knicks team when they get into regular season play. And they start off with 2 tough games. We'll preview the Knicks a little bit next week. But to start off with Boston on the road and Indiana at home, I mean, that's 2 really tough opponents they're going to go up against. So as we wrap up the 60th episode of New York State of Sports, again, just an eventful Monday on the calendar in New York. And you don't get many days like this in any sports town. Like, it is very rare to have a playoff game, two playoff games and a Monday Night Football game on the same day. I think you'd have to go back to 1986 when the Giants were playing Monday Night Football. The Mets were in Game 7 of the 86 World Series against the Red Sox. Where they benefited from a rainout that day as the main reason why they had to play that Game 7 on a Monday night. It's supposed to be a Sunday, I believe. So we will see what happens with the Mets today. I think Sean and I said to put a good performance. And look, Met fans have the right to be somewhat negative, but again, just get the split. Get the split and be happy. Yankees will try to start off on the right note against Cleveland later today with Carlos Rodon on the mound. We'll see what happens there. Jets, can they get their first win with Jeff Ulbrich era against the Bills? Next week, we'll look back at the Giants reuniting with Saquon Barkley at MetLife against the Eagles. Jets against the Steelers next week. Can the Jets get one of these wins, or if they go 0-2 in the stretch, they're in big trouble. Even though the AFC, I would argue, not that strong, you cannot lose these next 2. So they've got to find a way to get around the right track. Quick in the Liberty wrap for the WNBA Championship. Syracuse will have the league off, but Army will try to stay ranked and stay undefeated. And, of course, hockey in full swing. And next week, we'll look ahead to the Knicks and the Nets season with the NBA starting on Tuesday. So so much to get into New York sports. We'll try to have some more shows along the way. Thank you to everybody tuning in today. So from all of us here at IE Sports Radio and for everybody here at the network, this is Ricky K saying so long. Have a great week. Enjoy the day. Watch some sports. Have some fun. See you back here.